Hello and welcome. The topic of today's lecture is media analysis. If you have not done so already, please check out your media analysis assignment that will be due this upcoming Sunday. Regardless, please choose to take notes as you will be quizzed on this information at the end of class. We're going to start by talking about reading visual arguments. So for your media analysis assignment, that is exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to be reading any kind of visual argument and treating it as a text. There are different kinds. The ones that I'm going to be focusing today particularly are on photographs and on advertisements. However, just keep in mind that you're allowed to do anything you want. You can do videos, memes, instructions, whatever it is, you're going to be analyzing visual components. Keep in mind that photographs and videos are instruments of persuasion. So a lot of people get into the problematic area of thinking seeing is believing. Yes, that is true. When we see something, a lot of the times it can verify whatever it is. However, every time that you see some kind of photograph, there's going to be a persuasive element behind it. There's going to be a reason why it is existing. So I have 3 examples from COVID here so that you can take a look at that are a little bit more relevant than some of the other ones I have. You'll look at this picture down here. This is a woman visiting her elderly mother in, I believe it was in Seattle. Yes, it is. And automatically your heartstrings tug. And that is just because of the idea of someone having to visit someone through glass. It really tugs at our heartstrings. This picture right here is of a priest having to preach to his congregation of photos that he printed out. Again, it has certain associations with it depending on your religion. And this last one is an example, and this one was very popular, it went viral. It's an example of some nurses kind of standing in line of protesters during this movement. All 3 of these photos have different ways of persuading, and this is what the heart of the media persuasion assignment is to figure out how exactly these images are functioning to change your mind about something. Advertisements themselves can be especially problematic, as advertisements are short arguments, often lacking in fully developed support that use claims of policy to urge us to take action. Most of the images that you're going to be looking at for this assignment will be claims of policy. They're asking us to do something as a result of seeing them. And is your goal as a consumer of advertisements, of media, to determine whether or not the media is duping you or whether or not it is being ethical in how it's conveying its information. So I have a list of questions that you're going to want to ask. Please write these questions down as they will be really good for a foundation of your media assignment that will be due on Sunday. We're going to start with the first 2 questions that can be paired together. These are the most important questions that you want to ask in your media assignment. And the questions are, what is the purpose of this image and who is the intended audience? Very, very important. If we look at this photo right here, the intended audience is very much required because it changes how we view the image. If the intended audience of this photo were Trump supporters, then they would say, yeah, this is great. He's looking down at Hillary because, this, that, and the other. And so they would approach this photo with a little bit more admiration. Contrastingly, if the intended audience of this photo were Hillary Clinton supporters, then they can talk all about the male gaze, they can talk about feminism and that kind of thing. So who the audience is very much matters, intended and unintended. The purpose, and of course the purpose goes along with whoever the intended audience is. The next question to ask yourself is, what does the arguer want me to do or believe based off of the image itself? And how important is the visual image in persuading me to comply? So these are great questions to ask of your advertisements if you choose to do one. So this right here, the claim of this ad is to spend $250 to essentially save a life. So that's their claim. And they support that claim with this image of this sad looking little boy, very famished, skinny, not smiling, looking at us kind of pleadingly. So to this company is unethically using an image very, very heavy in pathos, very heavy in emotion to convince us to hold a specific belief. And really, the main question that they're asking is $250, this tiny, tiny sum, worth it to save this child's life? And they're saying, obviously, it should be. And again, they're using this in kind of a manipulative way through the use of images. The next question to ask is the visual image representative of a large group, or is it an exception that cannot support the claim? You see this all the time in weight loss ads, the before and after photos. And if you even look deeply at those ads, like 90% of the time, you're going to see some disclaimers at the bottom of them. You always want to think, is this representative of a small population, or is this going to work for everyone? And most likely, the images that they're showing you are going to be exceptions to the rule. Another question, if you're working with graphs or charts, another question that you need to ask is, can the validity of this chart or graph be verified? So this is going to make more sense specifically towards the end of the quarter when you are working on your research papers. However, it's something to always think about if you're presented with any kind of graph or chart. If you look at these examples right here, both of these would be considered accurate but misleading. Your baseline should always start at 0. In this case, it starts at 37, so the difference between leaving and remaining looks a lot more drastic than it really is. This chart is better because it does start at 0, and you can tell that they're more on the same page there. And last but not least, you want to ask, does the visual image lead me to entertain unrealistic expectations? So obviously, all kinds of advertisements fall into that category, especially with beauty. So in this case, her hair looks amazing, and there's no way that if I use that shampoo, my hair would look like that. But they don't, of course, mention that. That's the exception to the rule that we were talking about earlier. Political advertisements also do that. So that in this photo of the Obamas here, they're using their family as their selling point. Vote for us because we have a strong family is the assumption behind this political campaign. You always want to think about those hidden assumptions. And keep in mind that photos very much which are very similar to the written text, will always have a goal in mind, a persuasive goal, and I mentioned that already. And these two photos, which look very, very similar after Hurricane Katrina, you can read their corresponding captions and notice a completely different tone. So if we look at this image right here, these two people are white, and it says, 2 residents wade through chest-deep floodwater after finding bread and soda from a local grocery store after Hurricane Katrina came through the area. So again, finding bread and soda is something to be emphasized right here. In this image of a black person, it says, a young man walks through chest-deep water after looting a grocery store in New Orleans on Tuesday, August 30th, 2005. So the difference in photos here is not very big of a difference. However, the difference between finding and looting has argument in them. And so very much, which is very much as important to the text itself. And last but not least, when you're going to be writing about argument as you continue through this quarter, and you're going to be doing 2 things. So when you look at other arguments, when you look at either other photos, other texts, other essays, you're going to be doing 2 things. One is a claim of fact. You're going to be explaining what exactly the argument is. So you're going to be doing that with your media assignment on Sunday. You're going to be telling us essentially what happens in the text itself before you can move on to the claim of value. And the claim of value is the more interesting stuff. It's where you evaluate the argument and you say whether or not it is effective based off of the rhetorical appeals and stuff like that. So those are the 2 ways that you're going to be approaching writing about argument in this class. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. I hope that you did write out those 6 tips, the 6 questions that you want to ask about argument as you move forward, and I look forward to seeing what you have to say.